Hello, hello. Trying to get the camera angle good for us. Hoping my microphone is on and working. Today we're going to answer some questions that the subscribers have asked me lately. I was going to do this as a video, but I thought it might be more fun and interactive to do it as a live. I will wait a few minutes. Oh, one person's here. Welcome, whoever you are. You're the winner. You're first. Please let me know if my microphone is working, if you can hear me. Do, 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 do. I feel like we should have Jeopardy music that we can play in the beginning. Waiting a few minutes. Hello, hello. You're invisible. It tells me nobody's here. Welcome, welcome. I'm gonna wait just a few minutes. What have you guys been up to besides giving Ozzy a nap all day? We have two people. I have my list of questions. I kept saying I was gonna make a video and answer these, but I never got around to it. Hey, Kiwi. And Cat. So I thought it might be more fun just to answer them interactively. Do you guys have a question you want me to answer? Okie dokie. That sounds fun. I'm glad your weather's nicer so you can walk now. Glad it's not quite so hot. It's miserable here. It's almost 100 degrees outside. It was kind of hot in here. I just cranked the air conditioner down. Can you hear me okay with this microphone? Is my sound okay? Welcome. Just a couple more minutes. Okay, good. Good to know, good to know. Okay, well, we might as well get started. I have a list here. I'm not going to go in any order, except the first one on here I'm going to answer probably last. Here's our list of questions. I'll read them off first. Different viewers have asked me over the weeks. Hello, Mr. Munchkin Man. We're about to answer some questions from some viewers. I'll go over the list and then I'll start answering them. Number one is, how do anxiety and autism go together, or how does autism affect anxiety? I'm going to answer that one last. It's the most detailed. Number two, how do you support someone with chronic illness? Number three, how did I personally get diagnosed with hypermobility or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? Next is, how do I get Jackson to try new things? Then we have, after we finish the United States studies, have you thought about studying other countries? Then we have, if you could live anywhere that isn't USA, Canada, Alaska, or Mexico, where would you live? Hey, Melina from Brazil, welcome. And then the last question I'm going to answer is, have you experienced any mental changes since starting YouTube? Has YouTube affected family relationships or the atmosphere at home? And what has been the most positive aspect of YouTube? So, let's get started, I guess. The easiest, quickest one for me to answer is, how did I get diagnosed with hypermobility Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? My parents were told when I was a young toddler that I had hypermobility and that my connective tissue and ligaments and things were weak. When I was a toddler, I'm 51 years old, so when I was a toddler, that was long before people wore the cute little SMOs they wear now, or the, whatever you call the, the ankle braces, the things that go on your feet. So I actually had to have special shoes made that were built up on the inside so my ankles wouldn't twist and fall over. So my hypermobility issues started when I was very young. I was also born with a hernia and have since had another hernia, and hernias are also very common in people that have hypermobility. But I did not get an official diagnosis until I was pregnant with Jackson when I was 40 years old. Hey, Ocean. When I was 40, I was pregnant with Jackson, my youngest, who was now almost 11. And I was sent to a geneticist at that time because I have chiari malformation. They wanted to make sure in utero that they knew of any issues that might, be developing within Jackson. Chiari malformation, the type I have, is present from birth, but there are other types of things that are in the chiari family, which could be like spina bifida and things like that. So they wanted to make sure that Jackson didn't have any of that when he was in utero. And so when I went to that geneticist, they took a complete full family history. Nice, Ocean. I had emergency hernia surgery a year ago on 9/11, and it was horrible, but I had a complete strangulated bowel and things like that. It was a long recovery, but I'm glad it's over and fixed. So anyway, when I was 40 and I went to this geneticist, and they took a full family history, a full personal history, and then she did the little evaluations in the office, the little tests of how hypermobility different joints and things are, and other issues that I have. And she is the one that diagnosed me with Ehlers-Danlos, which also goes hand in hand with chiari malformation. Ehlers-Danlos also goes hand in hand with autism. So it wasn't surprising, when we figured out what autism was, or started learning about autism when Jackson was diagnosed, and then later at 50 when I was diagnosed. It just makes sense. All of these things really do go hand in hand. You can have one without the other, but very, very often people have several of these comorbidities together. So that's how I was diagnosed. Some people say that it is a very, very long process to get diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, or to get people to do the proper testing. But the hypermobility type, there is no test. It doesn't come back as a genetic marker or a genetic deletion or anything like that. They can rule out other types of Ehlers-Danlos that way. But for the hypermobility type, there is something, I believe it's called the Brighton scale. They have you do all of these different things with your body, contortion ways with your body, and take a family history, and they just diagnose from that. So there's that one. Next, from that one, let's go, how do you support someone with chronic illness? My biggest piece of advice to support anyone with chronic illness is to believe when they tell you they can't do something or they're tired. Honestly, just that alone is the best support I know to offer. If somebody tells you they're tired day after day after day, and they can't function, and they're not getting things around the house done, or they're not getting life things done that they need to do, just know that it's more than likely either depression, or it does take away the guilt. It's either depression or chronic illness. I have multiple chronic illnesses, and a side effect of many of them is chronic fatigue. Most of the time I have to force myself and push through, as do most people, I think, because I am a mother. I'm a homeschool mom. I'm a full-time mom. I'm a housewife. When my husband's out of town at work, which is half of every month, I am in charge of absolutely everything here, inside the house and outside of the house. But number one for support is just trust them. When they have a day, my husband is very, very supportive. If I have days or weeks that I really can't keep up with things, he never complains. He never complains. He picks up the slack when he can. He pays people to help out when needed. And he just knows that when I feel better, that I will get everything back in tip-top shape. So just the main way to be supportive is to believe them. Just, if they ask for help, help them. People with chronic illness stop asking for help. They stop complaining about pain. For day after day after day, I told people I have a headache. The boss that I was working for at the office actually complained that I was taking too much ibuprofen. They kept stock of big bottles of ibuprofen that they would buy at Sam's. And he actually complained that I was taking too much ibuprofen. He said I was eating it like candy. I can't even tell you all the days in a row that I had a headache, and they were severe headaches. It wasn't a little headache. And that was right before number one, right before I quit my job, and number two, right before I was diagnosed with chiari malformation. There was a reason that I had a headache. There was a reason that I was tired all the time and sleeping for hours a day and all night long. But nobody knew. Thankfully, I did have people in my family that were supportive and understood that I'm not a complainer. But all that to say, people with chronic illness, they stop complaining because nobody believes them. Or nobody wants to hear that you're tired again. Nobody wants to hear that you have a headache again. Nobody wants to hear how bad my hips and my knees hurt all the time. They just want me to get up and do stuff anyway. So, to support someone with chronic illness, just listen and trust them. Nobody wants to feel bad. That's right, Dill. It's hard. It's really hard, especially as a mom. We're not really allowed to get sick because when we're sick, we still have to be mom. Especially, well, not even especially everyone, but when you have a child with special needs too, and then when you homeschool your child too, and when you're responsible for the whole house and anything that goes right or wrong or in between because your husband's not here, you just have to do it. Or if you're a single parent or whatever. You're right. We don't get sick days. We don't get to clock out. We're on duty all the time. So the way to support us is number one, to listen. Number two, believe, and pitch in and offer some help when you can. Um, my sister doesn't come over very often. She's very busy on her own. My grown kids, they come over here and there. My grown son will still come in my house and take my trash out. My daughter will come, and if she sees that my ceiling fans or something need cleaned, I can't stand on a ladder and I can't tip my head back very long. They pick up the slack. Even though they're grown and have their own lives, they still pick up. My daughter-in-law, she'll come and she'll say, don't mow, I'll mow for you, and she'll go out there and mow the yard. Wow, Dale, that's a lot. That is a lot. Just reading that makes me tired. Kudos to you. Okay, so let's go on to some easier ones about homeschool. As you can see, I'm in the homeschool room. We are currently studying the United States. I believe we're on the 33rd or 34th state this week. We took last week off because my daughter was here. So I need to, after the live, I need to get my mind right and get into where, back where we are in homeschool. But one of our questions was, after we finished studying the United States, have we thought about studying under other countries? And I even asked Jackson his answer to this because mine is a resounding yes, and his was too. He said that he would absolutely like to study other countries. We've already learned a lot about Japan from one of our followers, Moz. We have been following, my older brother lives in Germany, and he posts pictures and writes a blog once a month. So we have been following his pictures and his blog about Germany. We have viewers from New Zealand, and we are very curious to learn things about that. We are, did I say Japan? I think I did. Yeah, deal. I know. Texas is its own country and its own state, right? And we studied it first, even though it wasn't first. But we are definitely open to studying other countries, especially countries that we have viewers from that can kind of make that a personalized experience. And like, I've always said I follow Jackson's lead for homeschool. Being autistic, he has kind of a one-track mind to focus, and whatever he needs to focus on, whatever his mind is stuck on, that's what we do. So anytime a country or a lesson of anything means something to him, he's going to be all into it. And we will absolutely, if you're from another country, you visited another country or lived in another country, give us your facts. Most of you already do. You send us little videos that we love watching. Moss has been sending us little videos about different things that kids do in Japan, and we've really enjoyed watching those. So yes, we would study the other countries, and I look forward to that. Next was, if you could live anywhere that isn't the United States, Canada, Alaska, or Mexico, where would you live? This was a really hard one for me. I don't really often think about traveling or leaving my comfort zone. I'm a person that I barely leave my house or my city. Occasionally we travel to another state, but we only stay gone 3 or 4 days before we're all really needing to come home. That was a really hard one for me, but I kind of narrowed it down. I looked up states that are the most autism friendly. I'm not sure how to say your name. My thoughts on the Quran. I'm not going to get real religious here either. I'm a Christian. I believe everybody has a right to their own beliefs and their own faith. I've actually read a lot of the Quran. I'm very interested in it. I think we have a lot of the same beliefs, but then I do think we veer off into a little bit different beliefs. But if you study the Quran and you love the Quran, I'm happy for you. I'm very happy for you. So countries that I would live in. Oh, where do you go, Deal? To Mexico? You live in Texas and you go to Mexico? I used to live down in South Texas when my daughter was a baby, and sometimes I babysat for a lady there. And when she ever had a day off, every now and then my mom would come down and visit me, and we would leave my infant daughter or my toddler daughter with the lady that I usually babysat for, and she would babysit for the day while me and my mom went to Mexico. It was really fun. I looked up countries that were supportive of people with autism or disabilities. Everything I looked at showed Sweden, Australia, the UK, the Netherlands, and New Zealand. Those were the main ones that I came up with that were pretty supportive of disabilities. Out of those, I found out the next thing I went to look at was temperature. Because me personally, and my son Jackson, who's also autistic, we cannot handle being hot. Part of that is the Ehlers-Danlos. Our bodies don't regulate temperature very well. We cannot stand being hot. We would go out in the negative temperatures and be happy with just a light hoodie on and play out there all day long. We cannot stand being hot. The only time we've been out this whole summer is when we're in the water swimming. So I looked at temperature and I found that the Netherlands stays year round between 37 and 63 degrees Fahrenheit. That is right up my alley. That is so perfect temperature for Jackson and I. Never below freezing and rarely over 63. So if I could pick just based on those two criteria that I looked up, I would choose the Netherlands. But the thing is, I know nothing else about it. I would really have to study to answer a question of where would I live, but I would be open to other things. Like I said, it's kind of hard for me to think about where else I would live because I'm very comfortable in my home right here in Texas. And my family's here. Wouldn't want to leave. My mom is here. My dad lives an hour away from here. My son and his two kids are here. And my daughter comes back here to visit as often as she can. So for now, we're here. But if we ever had to move, the Netherlands would be first on my list to research. Okay. This is like a three-part question. Have you experienced any mental changes since starting YouTube? Has YouTube affected family relationships or the atmosphere at home? And what has been the most positive aspect of YouTube? I would say any mental changes since starting YouTube is probably the same as the most positive aspect of YouTube. I have really come out of my shell. I have found that I can talk to the camera for a long time, and I am a very shy person. I always have been. I don't speak to people in Lubbock. Okay, deal. My husband works down there. He works around the Midland, Odessa area. He's oil field, so. Um, I am one of the most shy people you'll ever meet. If I was to pass you on the road, I wouldn't even look your direction. If I was to pass you in the store, I wouldn't even look your direction. I am very, very shy. I'm terrible at eye contact. I'm terrible at small talk. I'm terrible at carrying on a conversation. So one of the most positive aspects is learning that I do have things to say. I've always had a monologue in my head as long as I can remember. I have a monologue all night long and all day long in my head. And I've realized that I can actually speak. I don't talk a lot in person. I really don't. Um, but I can talk to the camera, so it's kind of brought me out of my shell in that way. Another positive has been the community. I said when I started this channel that the only thing I wanted was to have a community of like-minded, supportive people. I want people that understand each other, that don't belittle each other or judge each other or drag each other down. I just want a positive community where we love each other and support each other, and I have 100% found that here. My channel's still very small. I think I have 130 subscribers and probably only 10 that I actually watch every video and interact a lot, maybe 20. But I have found the best community here. I have met so many great friends here, and I know I have more to come. I know more are headed my way, and I know the right people will find my channel that need me to lift them up just as much as I need them to lift me up. So those are definitely positive aspects, the friendships that I've made and the community that I've found. Has YouTube affected family relationships or the atmosphere at home? I have to say, all the way since junior high, when I got my first disposable camera, you remember the disposable cameras that you took all the pictures and then you dropped them in the envelope at Walmart or the drugstore and they would send them back with the pictures. I have always been the person in my family with a camera in my hand. My family is so used to me taking pictures. I take pictures all day, every day, even before YouTube, even before Facebook, even before MySpace. I have always been the person in the family taking pictures. I think, yes, taking pictures helps me process my day. If I take 10 or 15 pictures during the day, I can sit back that evening and I can really look through them and I can process more information. Hey, Nanette! I can process more information by looking at the pictures I took that day, and I can really see people because in person, I'm so overloaded with sensory input, sometimes anxiety, sometimes all the things going on around me that I don't feel like I can live in the moment as much as I want to. So I can go back to the pictures every single evening. I can look at these pictures and I can really process. I can really see the look on my kids' faces, or I can really see the look on my grandkids' faces. I can really see the joy in the activities that we were doing. And it's not that I don't experience out there, but I experience it more when I can sit down in the quiet solitude and process. And funny enough, I could take 15 or 20 pictures every day my whole entire life. I can look at them that evening and delete them. I don't really need the pictures after that, and I only keep a select few. But my family is so used to me being the person with a camera in their face all the time and telling them to, hold still for 1 second or something, that kind of growing that into YouTube and making videos wasn't that big of a step. I definitely don't video everything that, when my mom's here, I don't video everything because she doesn't always want to be on camera. And of course, Jackson doesn't want to be on camera a lot. I would like to video a lot more of the activities Jackson and I do. I would like to video a lot more of the homeschool and the board games and things we play. But I have to be mindful of what he wants to be on camera for and what he doesn't, because it's not his YouTube channel and it's not his responsibility. If he doesn't want to be on, I don't force it. So I don't think there's been any big effect to the atmosphere at home. My husband is very much a technology junkie. He loves technology. So he's been asking me to do a TikTok or a YouTube channel, or not asking me, but he's like, I think you'd be good at it, for a long time. So when I finally got into it, he's very supportive. Hey, Cameron, nice to see you. So he has ordered me like a little, I don't have it in here, I was going to bring it out. He ordered me this microphone because the other one kept glitching out. He ordered me a little tripod that kind of follows you. It follows your face. So if I'm cooking or something, crafting, it'll follow me. And of course, the autistic me that doesn't like change has not used that tripod yet. But I have been looking at it every day, and I'm going to figure it out this week. Yeah, so my husband has been very supportive of my YouTube channel. And in fact, when he's home, I don't video that much because the house is just more chaotic. My mind is more chaotic and I have more responsibility. Sorry, Kiwi. So a couple of times he's like, are you still making YouTubes? Aren't you still making your videos? I'm like, I am, but I have 3 weeks already uploaded into the queue. I have a video 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for all of August already. So if I take a break here and there, it doesn't matter because I want quality and not just quantity. So I'm so glad you guys are here. How exciting. I've already answered a few questions. You'll have to come back for those. Let's see. I did this one. I did this one and I did this one. I have 2 questions left. And if anybody in here has a question, go ahead and ask it and I'll answer it too, because I only have a couple left on here. Nanette, how was your day? Kiwi, sorry your phone keeps going in and out, but enjoy your walk. I'm here whenever. Next, I guess we'll do, I was going to do the anxiety one last, but I think I'll go ahead and do it because then the next one kind of follows that. I'm glad you're having a good day, Nanette. Okay, so this was asked a long time ago. And I believe either Hot Wheels asked me this or Julie asked me this. I'm sorry I can't remember exactly. I should have written down. Ooh, that's a good one, Cameron. Don't let me forget that, okay? Let me make a note. Unexpected challenges. Y'all know I have short-term memory. Terrible short-term memory. Okay, I was asked by one of these ladies, how do anxiety and autism go together? Or how does autism affect anxiety? They asked this pertaining to Jackson but I'm choosing to answer it in a more broad way. Although I do talk a lot about Jackson's anxiety and Jackson's autism, I don't want to get into super specifics about his medical needs, if that makes sense. I mean, I can say beyond the shadow of a doubt, anxiety rules Jackson's life. It makes Jackson's life very, very, very hard. He has multiple kinds of anxiety, multiple types, and he was born with them. They have been there since day one. But rather than talking about his autism and anxiety, I want to talk about it in a more generalized way and how autism affects anxiety. This is the only one that I actually prepared my answer ahead of time, and I did print some notes because I actually did some research on this. I was actually excited to find out more information myself because I have anxiety too, but my anxiety is very different than Jackson's anxiety. Hi, Kavita. Welcome. I remember you from Cat and Kiwi's channel. Welcome to the channel. I do have anxiety. I do have autism and I do have anxiety, but my anxiety really only affects me when I have a change coming up. When I have a change in routine, when I have a change in plan, when I have a change in environment, or anything like that. I don't sleep. I don't function well. I'm just very stressed out. But on the average day, when I'm in my, comfort zone, my routine and things like that, I don't have anxiety on those days. So my anxiety is far different than Jackson's. He never does not have anxiety. So here are, I looked up some research. I did some of my own research. And I found several studies that estimate that up to 84% of individuals with autism experience clinically significant anxiety. Meaning 84% of autistics have anxiety that's far above and beyond your normal anxiety. Everybody has anxiety. Anxiety is a part of everybody. Although I often say that my husband doesn't have any anxiety because nothing makes that man anxious. But it's there. It's just at a very low all the time. Yeah, Nana, mine too. Mine is situational. Mine is always due to changes, some kind of changes. So up to 84% of individuals with autism experience clinically significant anxiety. Now, along with that, I found research suggesting that 40% of autistics have more than one anxiety disorder. Welcome home. So 40%, up to 40% of autistics have more than one type of anxiety. That's a lot. That's almost half of us. I can say I'm not in that half. I'm in the half that only has like the situational. But there are more than half. There are so many types of anxiety. I wish I would have written those down. There is general anxiety, which means you are scared of things in everyday life. Maybe you're terrified of tornadoes, but you think about it all the time. Like you can't even function properly without thinking about a tornado, even when the weather's perfect outside. Or, generalized can be anything in life. There is separation anxiety. Two of my children, both of my boys, have had extreme separation anxiety since the day they were born. It was so far beyond the normal infant separation anxiety and lasted years and years and years longer. Jackson still has horrific separation anxiety. He will not go anywhere or stay anywhere without me. He will barely go to my mom's for maybe an hour. And even at that, he's texting me the whole time to see where I am when I'm coming back and things like that. There is OCD or obsessive types of anxiety. And it doesn't always mean that you have compulsions or obsessions. You can have one or the other. Anxiety is so cruel, and there are so many types of anxiety. So for 40% of autistics, they have more than one type. That is a lot of anxiety. Okay, anxiety can present similarly to autism symptoms, sometimes making diagnosis and treatment more complex. I 100% agree with that because sometimes the way anxiety presents can mimic autism, and sometimes things that mimic autism are actually anxiety. And I'm going to throw in my own in here, especially for younger kids. When Jackson was little, we thought a lot of his struggles were ADHD. We thought a lot of his compulsive behaviors and a lot of his hyper behaviors were from the ADHD, and some of them are, but the older he got, the more we realized that a lot of it was anxiety. And anxiety in little kids can present as hitting people or kicking people or biting or running away or yelling and screaming ugly things. I mean, it can present in so many ways that you wouldn't even think were anxiety. But then the older the child gets and the more they can explain these situations, the more you realize that it really is anxiety. And I could give a lot of examples on that, but common anxiety symptoms like repetitive behaviors, rigidity, and social withdrawal can easily be mistaken for autism traits. So a lot of times these things actually go hand in hand. You can actually be having both and not one or the other. All right, bye Kiwi. It was good to chat with you guys for a minute. So here are some reasons for increased anxiety with autism. Here are some of the ways that autism and anxiety actually feed off of each other and go hand in hand. Number one is sensory processing differences. Autistic individuals may experience sensory input, sight, sound, touch, etc. differently, leading to heightened anxiety in certain areas. So here we have an example of how anxiety is caused directly from the autism. When you're overloaded with sights and sound and touch and all of these other things, it makes you anxious. So the anxiety is a separate diagnosis, but if you weren't autistic and didn't have these sensory disorders, you probably wouldn't have that anxiety. So they do go hand in hand and they do feed off of each other. Social communication challenges is another huge one. When you have difficulty understanding social cues and navigating social situations, it can cause severe anxiety, which can manifest in many different ways. So here again, you're having the anxiety and it's actually caused from the autism. So do you see how they go hand in hand? If you don't know how to act in public, or you don't know how someone's going to respond to you, or you don't know if they're going to look at you funny or laugh at you, or you don't know if someone's going to speak to you unexpectedly and you won't know how to answer them, or you don't know how everybody else, this is how I grew up, everybody else just suddenly knew how to act when we went places. Everybody else knew how to relate to each other and talk to each other, and everybody else knew how to join this activity and work together. And I didn't know how, which has caused me a lot of shyness and anxiety when I was growing up. And Jackson's the same way. So that is a direct result of anxiety from autism challenges. Difficulty with uncertainty. We have this one and one more. The world can feel uncertain and unpredictable, leading to anxiety for some individuals with autism. The world often feels uncertain and unpredictable. You see this, there's a lot of autistics that don't like infants, or don't like dogs, or don't like flying insects. My son doesn't like any of the above. It's the unpredictability. You don't know when they're going to bark. You don't know when they're going to touch you. You don't know when they're going to be loud and squeal. You don't know when they're going to maybe get some slobber on you, or, you know, these things in life. There's a lot of things with uncertainty. And for people that don't have the trouble processing these uncertainties, they wouldn't have anxiety in these situations. But when you do have trouble processing them, then it definitely brings on the anxiety. And lastly on here, it says some autistic individuals may struggle to identify and manage their emotions, contributing to anxiety. This is true also. We not only struggle to identify our emotions, but the emotions that we feel and the way we express them is completely different than the way it seems like neurotypicals feel or express emotions. You know, people often tell autistics that they're overreacting, or that they're crying for no reason, or just always that. Even some of these social, what is it called, like social therapies or social skills therapies that people give, they want to teach kids about expected or unexpected, or overreacting, or how we should react to a situation. There is no right or wrong. We process these feelings very, very different than a neurotypical person does. There is no right or wrong, but because we know we process these, because we might cry at the drop of a hat, or we might go in a meltdown and go into a rage and, you know, act ugly, or we might shut down and ignore people and they think we're just being rude. Because of all these struggles with identifying or managing our emotions in a way that other people see as typical, that causes us anxiety. You know, it causes us to want to isolate more. It causes us to not want to go out there and do things more often. So these are all great examples of ways that autism and anxiety kind of feed off of each other. You can have either or, but you can certainly have both, and multiple types of both. So they are definitely directly related. There's one more little paragraph that I printed out that was an impact of anxiety. It says anxiety can exacerbate social withdrawal, repetitive behaviors, and other autism symptoms. Untreated anxiety can lead to depression, aggression, or even self-harm. And anxiety can significantly impact an individual's quality of life. I agree with all of those. For people that are autistic or not, anxiety can really, really be a struggle. And unfortunately, even with therapies and even with medications, you can't just erase the anxiety. It's still there. It is, Kavita, you're right. Okay, Nana, let me read your question. With separation anxiety, does Jackson suffer anxiety if you are in the classroom and he's in the house, or you are working in the yard or he's in the house? Yes, a resounding yes. The older he gets and the more I can help him process things, the little bit better he gets, but I'm very careful about when I come out, and I am always mindful of telling him where I'm going to be at all times, where I'm going to be. If Jackson comes out of his room or out of the bathroom or out of the kitchen and he can't immediately see me, he panics. Very, very much panics. And when he was younger, it was harder to deal with. But now that he's older, he can think to just scream out, "Mom, Mom, where are you? I can't see you." And then I can, I can tell him I'm in the laundry room, or, things like that. But I make sure, and when I talk to Jackson, oh, there is one more question I didn't answer. When I talk to Jackson, because he is often in his own thoughts and in his own world, even when he appears to be listening to me, a lot of times he doesn't really hear me or process what I'm saying. So I make sure to go over to Jackson and I physically touch him. I either touch his arm, or I rub his back, or I somehow give him that physical touch, because it usually draws him more into my world to know that I'm about to say something to him and he needs to listen to me. And I can tell him, like before I came out here, twice I came out here. The first time just to set everything up and see if I wanted to do the live out here, or to see if I wanted to do it in the kitchen. So the first time I came out here, I came and I gave him a hug and told him I'm going to go out in the shed. I'm going to get the camera ready. He knew I was going to do a live. We talked about it this morning, and I made sure he knows, I'll be back in before I start the live stream, but if you need me, you come to the shed. And I give him very specific instructions. If you need me, you come to the shed, because when he is in the state of panic, he doesn't always think about what to do. Hardly ever does he think about what to do to solve an issue. Here's an example of that, something completely different than separation anxiety. Jackson is almost 11 years old. He's clumsy like his mama. We spill things all the time. Every single time he spills a drink, he panics and he freezes and he screams, and he does not pick up the drink. He does not pick up the ice. He does not try to save whatever is left in the cup. These are kind of indicators of how other parts of his life go. When he panics, there is no thought process whatsoever. So if I can give him the tools of what to do, if he needs me, come find me. If you need me, send me a text. If you need me, call me. If I can give him a direct tool of how to handle this anxiety, he is getting better at it. When I go outside, I make sure he knows I'm going to water the flowers. I make sure he knows what yard I'm going to be in. I'm going to water the flowers in the front flower bed. If you need me, come out the front door. I'm going to water the flowers in the side flower bed by your window, and if the dog's going to be out there with me, if you need us, come out there. I always give him direct instruction. I went and checked back in with him before I did the live stream, made sure that he didn't need a snack, made sure he didn't need a drink, and I planned my time to where, he's on his electronics at 3 o'clock. That's why I set it at 3 o'clock. Usually when I do a live, it's at 8:30, because he's in his room for the night. He doesn't really go to sleep then, but he's in his room for the night. He's done needing me. He has all of the things. I made sure he didn't need a snack. I made sure his ice water was full. We both filled up our cup of ice water. I made sure he knew he could go ahead and get his electronics at 3 o'clock. So I prepare him, and he knows if he needs me to come to the shed. So I'm glad you're finding this helpful. It doesn't make it easier to deal with. Hey, Timothy. Timothy's my brother. I have an older brother who lives in Germany. Then there was me, and then I have 3 adopted siblings, 2 brothers and a sister. Timothy is one of my adopted siblings. Thank you, Tim. I'm so glad to see you here. I didn't even know you knew how to YouTube. That's cool. Some of my other videos, my sister commented. Her name was Sally. Let's see. I had one more question. Nanette, I think this was your question also. How do I get Jackson to try new things? Because of the anxiety, um, the pathological demand avoidance, the constant need for autonomy, the ARFID, we have a lot at play here, which are all forms of anxiety. How do I get Jackson to try something new? First and foremost, it has to be his idea. It has to be something he wants to do. It has to be something that he's curious about. It has to be something that has some kind of interest to him, whether it be schoolwork, whether it be trying a new food, whether it be going somewhere new, whether it be trying a new activity, absolutely anything. Jackson has to be on board. The other tool that I have, and this is very common in the homeschool world, but it's even more common in the unschooling world, which is generally made up of neurodivergent children. We do something called strewing. I don't know if you've ever heard that. I do strewing for homeschool. I do strewing with food. I do strewing with books that I think he might like. And what strewing means, there's two ways to strew. Number one, it means you find these things that you think your child will be interested in and you lay them around the house. You put it on the kitchen table. You put it on the couch that he sits on. You put it next to a stuffed animal that you know he's going to look at. Strewing. S-T-R-E-W-I-N-G. I'm sorry, I have a Texas twang. Strewing. With food. It doesn't often work with food because of the ARFID. Jackson really doesn't try new foods. I mean, I'm beyond impressed. This summer he has tried the muffins that he hadn't had in a long time. He has tried 2 different kinds of ice cream, and he usually doesn't like ice cream or eat it. And he tried the fruit. But we'll talk about that in a minute, because all of those are kind of chaining off of foods that he has. And he has lately been in a place that he is ready to do that, even maybe once a month, but not always. But anything I want Jackson to try. Another way that I strew is I will look at information. I was looking at something earlier. I was looking up something online earlier. And not to Jackson directly, and nobody else is in the house, but just out loud, I started talking about something cool that I found that I was looking up. And I was like, this picture is so cool. I would want to try this someday. And this, oh, I know what it was. It was the swan boats in Boston. Yes, Kavita, I will read the comments. That's a good idea, because I think when the lives play back, you can't see anyway. I was spelling strewing for Nanette. That's a good idea, Kavita. So another way I strew is to just get excited about something or do something. I wanted Jackson to color with me the other day because we hadn't done any fine motor work at all. And if I would have asked him, do you want to color, he probably would have said no because he was busy. But instead, I waited until I knew he was about to come in the kitchen and he was going to fill up his ice water. And I sat down and I had the new marker set out and I had a couple of coloring books laid out and I started coloring. And when he came in, he got his ice water and was looking over at what I was doing, and he ended up sitting down and coloring with me for about 30 minutes. So strewing means you leave something laying around with a new food. Even a new food that he wants to try. I don't often say, okay, I'm going to cut it now, we're going to try it, because that's instant anxiety inducing. So what I can do is I can say like, I'm going to cut up this fruit and I'll lay it on a plate in the kitchen. It'll be there if you ever want to try it. I put no pressure whatsoever, no expectation whatsoever. So that's the way I get him to try a lot of new things. Another way we get him to try new things is to let him be in charge. We are planning our trip to Boston. It is a trip just for Jackson. You'll hear me talk about that probably in another week or two on a video. But the way we plan trips is we let Jackson plan them. We go where he wants to go. We let him do the research. We let him find things that he wants to do. When I find activities that I think look fun there that I would like to try, I kind of strew information about them around to where he can find it when he wants to and look at it when he wants to. And I let him come to me and say, hey, this looks cool. Do you think this looks fun, Mom? Or do you want to try this, Mom? So we've added a few things to our Boston list that way that he didn't already know about. Strewing is a great way to get absolutely anything done, even new clothes. I would never say, I bought you this. I bought you this to wear. It would never even get tried on. That would be instant loss of autonomy, and he would instantly shut down. He would instantly panic that it might be itchy, that it might make him sweaty, that it might be too loose or too tight. I don't do that. I can lay things out. I can say, oh, I bought some new clothes, and I can lay them out and around, and I never say I expect you to wear them. I never even say, really, they're for you. I put them in the wash, and I hang them in his closet, and eventually he usually chooses to wear them, especially if they have something he likes on them. He likes shirts that have little buttons right here, or he likes shirts with certain characters on them, or shirts with a certain material. He's like me, he likes 100% cotton. So I can say, oh, I found some t-shirts that are 100% cotton, and that's all I ever say, and I wash them and put them in his closet. So any way I can get Jackson excited or interested in something, that is the way I get him to try it, on his own accord, with his own interest. Was that the last question? Oh, somebody asked unexpected challenges of starting a YouTube. Unexpected challenges. I don't know. There have been challenges, but I think I expected them. I think Nanette, very, very occasionally. Jackson doesn't like shopping, doesn't like to be in a store, and does not, I'm not even saying he doesn't like it. He flat can't handle it. If we go in a store, we basically get the 2 or 3 items on our list and we head out. Now, can I show him clothes online and he'll pick one to try? Yes. But we always order them from somewhere that we can send back. That way, if they don't feel right or look right, you know, he knows that he doesn't have to wear them. It's not an expectation. But yeah, he will pick out some things online. You know, he loves his Snoopy, and he loves his, what are axolotls? He has a shirt with an axolotl on it, and things like that. So he can shop a little bit for himself. I like to go in the secondhand store, and he doesn't prefer to go in there. But every once in a while, I can get him to look at the clothes. Garfield, yeah, he has a Garfield shirt. The Garfield shirt I saw online when I did our Walmart grocery pickup, and I just had it come with the groceries. And he's the one that found it in the bag. I never said this is for you. I never said I bought this for you. I never said this is your shirt. He carried in the groceries and helped me unpack them, and he found it, and it just kind of went from there. He took it off the, or out of the bag, and took the sticker off, and I put it in the wash and washed it and hung it in his closet, and he wore it. And we did the same thing when Jackie and I went to Buc-ee's. We found the Peanuts shirt that he's been wearing. And I told him, I said, I found some cool Peanut stuff at Buc-ee's. I got a shirt, it's really cute. I never said it was for him. I never said I bought it for him to wear, you know, wash, repeat, hang, you know. But yeah, I just let him lead the way. And that's the way he learns everything. And he is very good at trying new things when he's ready and when he's interested. Back to the unexpected challenges of starting a YouTube. The biggest unexpected challenge, well, I don't know, they're expected challenges. We'll just talk about challenges because I did expect them. Number one, you know, my house, I love my house. I don't want to change anything about it. It is home to me, but I know I'm going to be judged on my house. You know, it's not super up to date. It's not super fancy. It's not modern. So the challenge was expected, but it was a challenge in my mindset that I just have to not care what other people think. They don't live here. They don't have to live here. They don't have to ever even visit here. They don't have to look at my house, and they don't have to look at my videos if they don't want to. But I love my house. It's my home, and it's comfortable, and it suits our needs very well. Other unexpected challenges. Number one was figuring out how to look at the dang camera, and I think everybody has that, but when you lack eye contact anyway, I have to remind myself, even if I turn the phone around to where I can't see myself on the screen, I have to constantly remind myself to look up at the camera sometimes, because I'm not a person that makes eye contact. I look down at something in my lap, or I look over here, or I look over here, or I look at mouths. So even when I look at myself on the screen, I'm looking at my mouth. I'm not even looking at me or the room behind me. Another challenge was my voice is very quiet. It's kind of a pain to have to constantly put a microphone on. But by nature, I don't talk a lot. I'm a very quiet person, and when I do talk, I talk quietly. So the first several videos, it was pretty hard to hear me, and it's taken a long time for me to learn how to speak up. Thank you, Kavita. Cameron is asking, did Jackson ever try public school, or did you know homeschool would be a better fit for him? Jackson has tried public school. Jackson first tried a public Mother's Day Out program when Jackson was between 2.5 and 3, because we did not know he was autistic yet. We knew from day one that there was something different. There were differences and challenges, but we didn't know that he was autistic. We thought, maybe ADHD. We didn't really know. Excuse me. So he tried the Mother's Day Out. My husband, it was the year that Oilfield crashed here and there were no jobs. So my husband went and worked in Saudi Arabia, and he was gone for 6 weeks at a time, which between travel and everything, he was gone about 7 weeks at a time and only home for about 4 or 5 weeks before he had to travel again. So during that time, Jackson was, I would never say anything negative about my son. He is such a joy. He is the absolute light of my life. But he had some very challenging behaviors that were fine, but when I was the only one going to be here to do absolutely everything, we thought that we would start him in a Mother's Day Out program, and it was only for 2 mornings a week. They would go in the morning, they would have some playtime, some, music time and things like that. They would take a little rest, and then they would come home. So we decided to try that. I don't want to cry. This is a very touchy subject for me, and I have not been ready to talk about it much. Jackson was physically abused at the Mother's Day Out program, so we pulled him out of that. And thankfully, by some grace of God, he was able to tell me in enough of a way. Jackson has always been highly verbal. He could talk at 18 months old, full sentences, but he did not have the communication skills to tell us things that happened or things like that. When he talked, to an outsider, it made sense, but it was what is called gestalt language. He was a gestalt language. It was memorized lines from books that we read, memorized lines from TV shows he watched, and he would speak functionally with them. But to come up with things out of his own mind and to tell us that somebody hurt him and to explain to us what happened and this, that, and the other, it was a very long process of asking all the right questions, because he's also a literal thinker. You can ask him something in 50 ways and he'll tell you no, 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 but then you ask it in the exact right way that makes sense to him, and oh yes, that happened. So we took him out of there. And then we did not send him back to school until Jackson's birthday is about a week after the cutoff deadline here to go to school. So when most kids go to 4-year-old pre-K, they're 4 that year. Well, he was turning 5 very shortly after school started. So we got him into pre-K and we got him an IEP. By this time, we knew he was autistic, even though the schools didn't really want to recognize it. Hi, Bianca. We got him into public pre-K, and he went to public pre-K from the start of school in September until Christmas time. And it was very apparent by Christmas time that it wasn't a good fit. I wish I could go back and not send him. During those 6 months, his anxiety in every way, shape, and form multiplied by 1,000,000. School was very hard on him. The teacher did not, even though he had an autism diagnosis and he had an ADHD diagnosis, they did not understand why he acted the way he acted, why he did the things he did, why he was unable to play with the other kids the way they thought he should play, why he couldn't just go to this center for 20 minutes and this center for 20 minutes and this center for 20 minutes, because it just wasn't in his abilities, and they didn't understand it, and he was just a very misunderstood little kid. So we took him out then, immediately got him into therapy. He has done cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's very play-based and very child-led, and the therapist is actually a great friend of mine. She actually runs our local chiari group here and has autism in her family, so she understood him before I even understood him. She also helped us get his diagnosis. So Then, fast forward, we homeschooled. We did a wonderful program. It's not only offered in Texas, it's in a few other states. It's called HIPPY. It's HIPPY. And it is a preschool program where they come to your house once a week. They bring you a packet that includes books, worksheets, coloring sheets. It tells you line by line what to say when you teach these lessons. It gives you activities to do, like how to jump around like a kangaroo or meow like a cat, and different, just all different activities to do. So you have a whole week to complete this weekly packet, and then they come back the next week and they take one page of that to put in a portfolio, and they leave you the next package. So we did 3 years of hippie, which I absolutely loved. That made me fall in love with homeschooling. After that, I was like, okay, we got this. We can do this. He was slowly calming down. He was slowly able to focus more. When I homeschooled Jackson in kindergarten, Jackson was 6. When I homeschooled him, no exaggeration, 3 minutes was our limit of sitting down and doing anything. And that included getting the crayons out, making 2 or 3 scribbles on a paper and putting them up, opening a book, reading half a page and putting it up. 3 minutes was the absolute limit. He would do anything. He was just constantly in motion and moving, just dumping things out, getting into things, climbing on things, jumping on things. So we spent a lot of time between the age of 3 and even 8 or 9 away from home. We went to indoor gyms, we went to the swimming pool, we went to the science museum that we have a pass to. We went places that he could just go and go and go and go. We would go to Chuck E. Cheese and we would hang out there for 3 hours. Just, I wouldn't even put money on a card. We would buy our drinks and buy some pizza if he would eat it. And there was no one else in there. The workers didn't mind. They loved him. They thought he was adorable. We would stay in there for 2 or 3 hours and he would just run around game to game to game to game to game, just doing, we had to stay active. We would go sometimes to 3 or 4 parks in one day. He was constantly active, but that has progressed into the homeschool that we do now, going at his pace. So also he went back to public school. There was a time in first grade when we hit another really rough patch. I was having some health issues, and Jackson was starting to ask more for friends. He wanted to play with friends. He's always had friends around. We had a neighbor that he was really good friends with. We were in a mom's club with other kids he was friends with. And of course, I have a lot of grandkids that are the same age with him. So he was learning how to play with kids and interacting a little bit more, and he wanted kind of to be around kids more. So in first grade, we made the choice together, all of us as a family, to put him into school. But between all the testing the school did and all of the IEP meetings that I went to and took his therapist to so that we could get a plan in place, he actually did not start first grade until after Christmas. So he started second semester. He went to second semester of first grade, and he had some struggles. They started him out with a one-on-one aide, and they very quickly took her away from him. They started him out going to the special education class 2 or 3 times a day to get a break from the classroom and to get a little bit of one-on-one time, and they quickly removed that from him. Jackson's academic skills are so high that Texas runs by the dumb STAR test. They wanted his academic grade in their ratings, so they did not want to basically see any need. Once again, he was very misunderstood. He was just expected just to go be with these 30 other kids at all times every day and just make it work. And so he did the second half of first grade. We should have ended there, but we were very torn. You get one thing from the teachers, oh, he's doing great, he's doing fine, and then you get one thing from your child when they come home. But he went to the he started second grade at school, and he went to 1 semester of second grade. And once again, I wish I could go back in time and never, ever, ever send him. That led him to a very deep and dark place that I will not talk about. It took years of therapy, and he still has PTSD from it, and I don't say that lightly. It was to the point that the minute I picked him up, I would go in the school to pick him up because he would run off if they came out or brought him out, and he was too anxious. So when I would pick him up from school, the meltdown would start, and it would last all night long. He was throwing up every single night. He lost so much weight. He was not sleeping. We were trying different strategies in his IEP. We were trying different medications with his doctors. He has a great team of specialists. He was still going to therapy. We tried getting the therapist to come to the school. We tried all the things. And it finally gets to where, people here, professionals call it school refusal. They say that he refused to go to school, or when we would get him to school, he would immediately just want to go and call mom to come get him. But to me, it wasn't that he refused to go to school. He was unable to go to school. He could not be there any longer, so we pulled him out. And it has taken years to get from that point to the point we are now. And we are in a fabulous place right now. Not to say we don't struggle. We have daily struggles. I have struggles myself. I'm autistic. I have anxiety. I have my own struggles. I have, the chiari that I deal with. I have the Ehlers-Danlos that I deal with. Jackson has struggles. He's autistic. He has horrible anxiety. He has some challenges. But mentally, emotionally, we are in the best place we could ever be. And he knows 100% I will never put him back in public school unless he wants to or expresses a desire to. My husband knows, my mom knows, everybody in my family knows. If I was to die, God willing that doesn't happen, but if I was to die and everybody else is left to take care of him, I don't care what position you're in, you do not put him back in public school. He will have a wonderful education just out of his own curiosity. This morning, Sunday morning, everybody's relaxing, everyone's having a good time. I'm folding laundry and stuff. You want to know what Jackson was doing? He was studying the globe. He was looking on his tablet, studying the globe. He had his Monopoly World Travels game out, and he was looking up different cards that we, land on and purchase in the Monopoly World Travel game. He was looking them up on the globe and finding out more information about him. My child is as smart as a whip. He teaches himself things all the time. He knows so much information that I don't even know. If he never stepped another foot in a classroom, even my own classroom, he would be a very successful adult, and I have no doubt in that. If he can get past the anxiety and if he can work through the autism to find a job that fits his needs and his abilities, he will be highly successful. So he will never go back to public school unless he wants to. Yeah, he's a very, very self-driven learner. Jackson could read at 2. At 18, between 18 months and 2 years old, he could already recognize words. He was so fascinated with the letters. And we didn't know this is one of the signs of autism. This can be a huge red flag or trait of autism, is a very early fascination for letters, sounds, and numbers. That was him to a T. We had the little foam letters. It's okay, Cameron. I don't mind. Cameron says she's sorry. She asked about a sensitive subject. She's happy and he's in a better position being homeschooled now. I don't mind, Cameron. I won't go into a lot of detail. Jackson, some things in Jackson's life are private. I don't mind giving like an overview like I just did, but his details are his details. My brother Timothy, I think, asked a minute ago if the schools didn't want to recognize the autism. If they didn't recognize it or didn't understand it. That's kind of a complex question. When Jackson was younger, all the way until Jackson was in, I would say, 2nd grade, you would just think he was a wild, naughty kid. And trust me, people thought that all the time. Even with an autism diagnosis, we had professionals tell us that, oh, this isn't autism, this is bad parenting. You know what? Parents always get blamed. Bad parenting, or lack of parenting, or lack of forcing him to eat properly, or lack of forcing him into compliance with things. I'm like, come on. I've raised 2 kids. I've babysat for years. I've substituted in the school for years. I've, helped raise my nephew off and on. I was not new to the parenting game or the child rearing game. When I'm telling the pediatrician at 6 weeks old that there is something different about my child, when I'm telling her every single time we see her, there were times I went in there crying, like I knew he was different. I just needed help understanding why or what. But the schools at that young of an age, because he was verbal, and I think that's a huge misconception, which is why if you see me hashtag or you see me put little tags in my stuff, I constantly talk about verbal autism. Autism does not mean speech delay. They are 2 separate diagnoses. Just like autism and anxiety are 2 separate diagnoses. Autism, ADHD are 2 separate diagnoses. There are millions of autistic children and adults that are verbal. They are highly verbal. They are highly intelligent. So doctors have to stop seeing an intelligent, extremely bright, verbal child and assuming they are not autistic, assuming they're just bored, or assuming that they're just hyper, or assuming that the parents need to put them in more activities or fuel this energy somehow. You can be verbal and still be autistic, but so many autistics also have apraxia of speech or just a regular speech delay. They go hand in hand. They are comorbidities. Again, you can have one without the other, but you do often see apraxia of speech with autism, but they are not one and the same. They are not the same thing. So the schools, they see a child that can be social. Jackson's not social at all now, but that came, I talked about this in a different video. Um, you see a lot of autistics that are, I don't like using levels. You know, some people call them level 3 or lower functioning. I don't like using levels because your level of support needs changes minute by minute, hour by hour. But when you have an autistic person who does not yet have the cognitive awareness that other people have feelings or opinions about them, they don't have the anxiety yet. It doesn't mean they won't ever get it, but there are autistics that don't have anxiety because they don't even really notice or process that people have feelings about them. So up until Jackson hit that cognitive level, which was probably between 7 and 8, 6 to 8, he hit that awareness. That's when his anxiety of other kinds of anxiety, like the social anxiety, really ramped up. When he was little, he didn't have the social anxiety. He did not have the social skills to play like the other kids, and he definitely didn't have the self-control and social skills to sit calmly and play interactively with someone. He's still not great at interactive play. He still does better with parallel play. So there was a lot of things, reasons why the school didn't see it. They see a kid that's verbal, and they see a kid that smiles and wants attention and is interactive here and there, and they didn't understand why he wouldn't do all the other things. I can remember a few things in particular. Well, and also, even starting that young, he still had the selective mutism. He went to the Mother's Day Out program when he was 2.5 to 3, and he had gone there for months, and the teacher said, not months, he had gone there for probably 2 or 3 months. The teacher had a meeting with Jackie and I one time talking about his, behaviors that they couldn't deal with very well. And one of her complaints was that he wouldn't sit at circle time. Well, they were learning the colors, the letters, the shapes, and nursery rhymes. Jackson knew every bit of that. He knew every bit of that long before he ever went there. And when we told her that, we said, we think he's just bored because this is all information he already knows. She was flabbergasted. She was floored. She had no idea that Jackson knew any of that because he had never spoken in circle time. He had never once said the name of a letter, the name of a sound. He had never said the nursery rhymes with them, sung the songs with them. So he hid a lot of his disabilities at that time. But then also other ones, like they complained because they had a music class. A place here in town that does private music lessons would come to this Mother's Day Out program once a week, and they would do a music lesson for the kids in the gym, and Jackson would run circles round and round and round and round the gym instead of participating, and they just thought he was being naughty. Okay, now that we know he's autistic, we didn't know then. That's very common. Man, he was feeling that music. It was a sensory pleasure at times, but also very overloading. Jackson still doesn't like a lot of different musics. Jackson still hates to hear people sing. So I think that was his coping, was to stim, just to run round and round and round and round. We ran into the same issue when we went to Move and Groove or Laugh and Learn at the library, and they would play music. All the other kids are doing head, shoulders, knees, and toes and hokey pokey, and my child's running circles round and round and round, plowing people over and not even realizing that he's knocking people over or hurting them. That's autism, but we didn't know at that time. So even when people did know, the school doesn't listen to doctors. The schools here don't even recognize a medical diagnosis of autism. They do their own assessments, and they only look for how it affects a person's education. So there are two different diagnoses here. You can have a medical diagnosis of autism, and you can still have the school refuse to see it, which they did for Jackson when he was little. But by the time he was in 1st and 2nd grade, they saw it very clearly. So I don't know. The schools are just not set up for neurodivergent kids. They really aren't. They're only set up for a kid that can fit in their little box, who can sit in a seat all day long, who can be still, who can eventually pass a test however they get to that, who basically just don't cause a ruckus. And if you don't fit that, then you know, they're going to just label you as a behavioral problem. Did I see a change in him when you got his service dog? Well, we already had Thor. Thor was already our family dog, and Thor was already very, very, very well trained. We saw a huge, huge calming effect when Thor was with us, which is why we paid the trainer and worked our butts off to get the training done so that he could travel with us. Mostly, the way Thor helped was Jackson has always liked to plan these trips and travel. Well, when we would travel and we would leave his dog at the boarding facility, Jackson would cry the whole way to wherever we were going. He had this big trip planned, and he would cry the whole time we were going there because he just wanted to go back and get his dog. So it was kind of like another form of separation anxiety. He just couldn't handle the fact that his dog was there. So really, honestly, the only reason we got him service dog trained was so that he could travel with us, and for years he did. But now that he's older, and he was very calming for Jackson, just to be able to hug him. He was trained to sit over Jackson's lap and give him that deep pressure. Thor is trained to lay out so Jackson can lay on top of him and get that pressure that way and that sensory. And just having him there to love on. We could find a quiet place alone and he could just sit with his dog. Now that Jackson's older and Thor's older, Thor doesn't go with us as much now. He's getting older. His hips hurt a lot. He's had those 2 really big seizures, which kind of changed him a little bit. He's still very well trained. But now Jackson's older. And now Jackson understands that, well, 2 things. Jackson doesn't really like to ride in the car with Thor now that he's huge because he slobbers and sheds everywhere. So now the sensory aspect of that is kind of a little bit worse for Jackson than not having Thor with us, if that makes sense. But also, we have found a boarding facility that we've used probably for the last 2 years now, maybe 3. And Jackson knows that it's a doggy spa, and he knows that Thor gets great treatment there. We pay for him to have extra one-on-one fetch time. He gets a nice bath and a cute little bandana before he comes home. So now Jackson is able to leave Thor here and know that Thor's on vacation too. We've already scheduled Thor's vacation for when we go to Boston. And Jackson, he does still miss him some, and we take a picture of him. We take a picture of Thor, and he wants to take a picture of Pixie with us this time, the cat. So when he misses him now, he knows that he can look at the pictures, and he knows that the boarding place actually puts pictures almost every day on their Facebook page, so we can go on and see if they have a picture of Thor out doing his fetch time. And it's usually a funny picture in action, like his tongue will be hanging out, his ears will be flying around and slobber, and so Jackson thinks that's really cool. So he's better at leaving him now. Thor is still very, very calming to Jackson. The cat is too, but the cat doesn't really like Jackson to mess with her. She loves Jackson, and she goes up to him and jumps on him and rubs all over him, but then if he goes to pat her or love on her, she's grumpy. Are there any other questions? I think we've been on here for quite a while. That's so cool that Thor is on vacation and having a wonderful time. He really does. You know, he gets so excited. I don't know how Thor knows, but he knows where we're going when we head towards the kennel. And I don't know if it's because it's a different direction than other places we drive. He gets so excited, and he jumps right out of the car when I tell him to get out, walks right into the door, and they all know him. Hi Thor, come on, you know. I think he knows that they're going to play fetch with him, and the facility where he goes, he has his own private kennel, and every kennel there has a sliding door that opens, and anytime the weather, I think it has to be over 40, I think anytime the weather is over 40, they keep that door open all day long. So the dogs have a little bitty yard they can go out in, so they can hang out in the sun, they can do their business out there, they can see the other dogs while they're out there, or they can come in through the doggy door, and in their little kennel, they have a cot, a dog cot, just like we take camping when we take Thor camping. So Thor has his own little private, we call it his own private hotel room. He has his own bed. We take his food, so he has his own food, and we take a big antler for him to chew on. So he takes his own stuff just like Jackson does, and he is able to go outside, and we just say he hangs out with his friends. Like, it's his trip too. And then before we pick him up, they give him a really good bath. So he always smells nice and fresh when we pick him up. Any other questions? We've been on here over an hour and a half, I think. An hour and 15 minutes. Thank you guys for hanging with me. I just thought it would be easier to do the questions this way than to just make a video where nobody can, you know, add their input or ask a question or things like that. Any other questions? Nana says, our little Jazzy was the same way. She absolutely loved the facility we used. She'd get so excited to see the owners, and Jazzy had her own suite, and she'd play with other little dogs. That is so cute. We tried a kennel one time that actually had a doggy daycare inside, and the dogs could go to daycare. Sorry, one second. I took allergy medicine, so my mouth is so dry. We tried a kennel that had a doggy daycare, and the first time Thor went, he had a great time. And I don't know what happened the second time. The second time we took him there, they said that Thor barked or reacted towards another dog, so they never put him in the daycare part. So he stayed in this kennel. This kennel didn't have an outside. They only took him out twice a day. He stayed in this kennel the whole time we were gone, so we never used that facility again. Because Thor has we've never had anyone complain about him being reactive to other dogs at any groomer or any kennel or anything. I don't know what happened that time. I don't know what the situation was. And I'm not saying he didn't growl or bark at another dog. Who knows? You know, maybe the other dog bowed up at him, or maybe Thor was just having a day that day. I don't know. But we like the kennel he goes to now because he has access to being outside or inside all the time. You see Groot, Primrose, Primzoo. Jackson has had this group for a long time. When he was in kindergarten, this is one of the things we bought when we did kindergarten homeschool. It used to hold his pens and pencils, but now he's upgraded to a fake plant, which we call it his pineapple. Looks like a pineapple top. Just last week we added this plant. We got this one at Hobby Lobby. It's also fake, but I love it because it looks real. I like plants. I just didn't know how good I would be at keeping one alive out here. I have a few in the house that I do well with, but I'm afraid I would forget to water them or overwater them. We also have the dehumidifier running all the time in here, so it might be too dry for them. So when I saw this and it looked really realistic, and even the pot looks real, I was like, that'll be perfect. It'll look like we have a plant. We'll have that visual aesthetic aspect of having a plant without having to actually care for the plant. We have a lot of Jackson's knickknacks and things up here. Jackson is a collector of many, many things. Even the desk here where I am is just full of little knickknacks and little things. Our shelves here are full of them. He likes his little knickknacks, and I like to have this space out here cozy for him. Sometimes, here's another way that I get Jackson to do things without putting a demand on him. Because, you know, doing homeschool is demanding. Even though I follow his lead, and even though we don't do a whole lot of like seat work or worksheets or anything like that, when I can tell that Jackson is not in a place to do math, is probably his biggest struggle, and I don't know why. He's good at it, he just doesn't enjoy it, and a lot of times he'll shut down. That's why I don't film math very often, or when I do, I fast forward it with music, because I don't want to show him struggling. But I can say, you know, it's his turn to do number one. Jackson, don't read it. Let him read it. It's his turn to do number one. And sometimes that'll get him on board. Or he always brings one of his stuffed animals out, and we kind of take turns who's going to read or whose turn it is to do the problem and things like that. So it takes the pressure off of Jackson. Even though obviously he's the one doing it, it takes that pressure off of him, because he's making this guy read in his voice and do it. Or he's making this guy read in his voice and do it. And we make him act silly and all that stuff, but we get the same math done. So, somehow we randomly have Wisconsin over here. Maybe that's what we're going to do this week. I don't know. Nanette, tomorrow we're going to do California. We're going to study your state finally tomorrow. He's doing pretty good, Tim. As long as we kind of stay in his comfort zone. I push him out of it every once in a while, but most of the time, you know, we all like our comfort zone. We all like to just be where we're not feeling threatened and not feeling anxious. So, well, thank you for joining. I will talk with you guys next time. What is today? Sunday? As always, I have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday video scheduled. They come out at 12 o'clock Texas time. So be sure and watch. Be sure and like and leave me a comment. Boost me a little bit in the algorithm. If you know anybody that would enjoy my videos, if you know anybody that, maybe a later diagnosed autistic person, or somebody that's raising an autistic child, or somebody that's homeschooling, or somebody that's just maybe home and bored and alone all the time, send them my way. I'm here and I'm ready. I love growing this community. Nanette, I appreciate you. Tim, I'm really glad you're here now. Kat and Kiwi. Moz, I think Moz might be at work. She's working nights this week, and in Japan it is nighttime, I think, right now. Actually, in Japan, I believe it's 6 a.m. in the morning right now, so this was overnight for her. We have just a big community here. I can't even remember everybody's name. But, Robert watches and comments on every one of my videos. He hasn't yet made it to a live. Who else? Julie, Hot Wheels. I'm terrible with names, but I appreciate every single one of the followers that's here faithfully every single video, watching and commenting. I did too, Nanette. Juanita, I love that Juanita's following along when she feels up to watching. So I'm going to get off here now. Thanks for watching. It'll be back. The replay will be back on. I think it takes a few minutes for it to approve and upload, but for anyone who missed the first part of the questions, if you want to go back and rewatch, you can, and if not, I'll see you next time. Have a great day.